Okay, guys, we're going to get started. Whoa, whoa. Okay, so I have to be mic'd, even though this is a relatively small space, because we have folks joining on the live stream, and so wanted to give it a shout out to them. And furthermore, I have to kind of stand back here and monitor this situation. Thank you so much, Lala, for organizing the live stream so that folks could join us from offsite. So I want to welcome everybody to the fourth or fifth sea level sensor workshop that we've had down here in Savannah. And we're going to talk a little bit about what the project goals are, where we are with the project, and prospect a little bit ahead so you can get a sense of where we're going. And then the kind of presentation part will be very short today, in part because some of you are already kind of aware of the project and may want to jump straight into discussion. We also really value the input and feedback from those of you who are in the room and learning about the project for the first time maybe, or may have some really specific questions and comments. So we're really excited about that aspect today. And so I will jump right in with introducing myself. So my name is Kim Cobb. I am a professor of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences at Georgia Tech and the director of our Global Change program. And I'm also joined in co-leading this project from the Georgia Tech side by Russ Clark, who is right there, if you don't know him already. He is mostly in Georgia Tech Atlanta, but spends a sizable amount of time down here at GT Savannah, where we are so fortunate to be hosted. Thank you, GT Savannah, for all these amazing amenities and facilities that help us make these workshops extremely easy when we host them here. And then the other co-leads on the project are Randall Matthews from SEMA, and Nick Deffley, who is, I understand, on his way, and he'll be with us for the day as well, from City of Savannah. And those form the main leads, and we'll go through the whole project team as I present the project today. And so the project team is extremely large at this point, and so I'm not going to go through this whole list of folks, but I do want to note that we have really incredible engagement from Georgia Tech. So we have this very deep bench and growing bench of people on the Georgia Tech side who represent civil engineers, computer scientists, earth and climate scientists, education specialists, communication specialists. It's just amazing how many folks at Georgia Tech really want to be part of this project. And as we seek funding, we combine these folks in different ways to pursue buckets of federal funding or other state funding, other foundation funding, et cetera. So that's very exciting that we have so much capacity from just starting with, I think, just Russ and I and a couple conversations to where we are right now over the course of the 6 months of the project, 7 months of the project. And then we definitely, from the ground floor, had amazing engagement from SEMA. And so now we have, of course, Dennis Jones is Randall's boss, and David Anderson, who I think, is he here? I don't see. No, he's not here. Okay. All right. And David. And then from the City of Savannah side as well, from the outset, Nick has been amazing, and we've had incredible support from Tom McDonald, who is here, and David McDonald, who is here on the city side, helping us keep in mind the other communities to engage with and resources that are available to the project from their networks. Lara Hall is here from SAGES. There's Lara. Thank you so much, Lara, for your joining on enthusiastically and for coming to our workshops and being part of the project team. As we go forward, we know that the data that they're providing the project is going to be extremely important in generating some of our key deliverables with regard to the portals that we want to make. And then moving on to the Skidaway, who is also a core partner, not from the first breath, but from like the second breath, Dr. Clark Alexander and Mark Fisher, who are helping us think about ways we might take a step into the ocean, literally, and think about monitoring some parameters in the undersea environment, which is very exciting for the project. And we have a couple pending funding proposals that's targeted specifically to that. So stay tuned as we may or may not make a big step to strengthen that piece in the near future. Carl Lewis from Open Savannah. I know we have another member from Open Savannah as well. Really great partners to bring on in terms of thinking about what to do with all this data and how to help the public interface with the data. And moving on to our educational partners, we have Jenkins High School has become a really core partner, as we'll hear about later in the presentation. And I want to call out specifically Tom Maddie and Grace Harrington, who have come to most of our workshops. I don't see them today, but we just see them all the time now. So, yeah. Yes. So I know, Russ, you were there yesterday all day. So they are very closely engaged with the project. And thanks to Tim Cohn, who can't be here today, he is leading that interface and that collaboration on the Georgia Tech Savannah side. I want to give a shout out to him. He couldn't be here today, but he's part of the core project team, as you can see right here. And then we have Oglethorpe Middle School, a charter school here in the area that Jema Koval, has been leading that partnership with a teacher named Rebecca Greenbush, and they're developing some curriculum that she'll speak to a little bit later today for middle school students around sea level rise and the sensor data streams. So this is just a big list at this point. It's a rich space, and it's a lot of partnerships in various stages of progress and development and funding. So funding continues to be what's going to drive our major near-term investments, with a bunch of stuff out there pending. So just to refresh our brains on the main motivation for this project and our main target, this is what caused this team of people to come together. That's what caused their the leadership to come together and really facilitate this partnership going forward, is this idea that Savannah and the surrounding area remains acutely vulnerable to coastal flooding. And of course, we can think about this in the context of storm surges as mapped here by SEMA, but we can also begin to understand, as you well know, that this is an issue that goes beyond storm surges and touches people's everyday lives in any number of ways, king tides, wind events, things like that. And it's not just Chatham County, but we have neighboring Glynn County, which also is acutely vulnerable. In fact, Russ and I have a meeting tomorrow with some stakeholders, including the mayor of Brunswick, talking about what this project might mean for Glynn County, and whether there's something that we could do to help them put some sensors in Glynn County and start to build on the platform that we've created in Chatham County. So very exciting to see that interest, and we remain eager to engage. And sea level rise is a major threat. It's going to be an ongoing threat. And so this is what I like to call the most boring curve in all of climate science, because it really shows so little variability compared to temperature, rainfall, extreme events. There's really only one direction that this is going. And it will become an acute threat to the entire eastern seaboard and the entire Gulf Coast, especially over the next decades. And the projections are just highly uncertain at this point. And so this is very frustrating, I know, for coastal managers and residents to think about what kinds of future they're going to face, whether it's going to be, like less than half a meter in the next 100 years, which doesn't sound so bad, like a foot or two. Maybe we could handle that. Maybe we could adapt to that, build some infrastructure to protect ourselves. But in some of these scenarios, it's going up to several meters, and that's a whole different ballpark. That's something that will be managed very differently. And if you knew that it was going to be 2 meters today, you would make some very, very, very different near-term choices with investments and flood insurance and things like that to try to help your community do the decades of adaptation to that threat. So the main uncertainties here are twofold. One is uncertainty about emissions pathway. So we don't know whether we're going to be on a high emission scenario for the next decades or a lower emission scenario. That's about half the uncertainty that's baked into these trajectories. And the other major component is the response of the large ice sheets to the warming that we do manifest through emissions. So that's a huge additional spread of uncertainty that unfortunately is really hard to pin down. It's very hard to see from a climate scientist perspective any of these curves narrowing appreciably to help decision makers and planners. So this is some of the uncertainty that we're faced with today. For people who are extremely vulnerable or infrastructure that is extremely vulnerable, you might want to think about a high side measures to protect yourself, and on the low side, there's less risk, and so you might those things that are less sensitive don't have to worry as much. And then this is a lovely photo that Russ took in his own neighborhood of a picture illustrating that during a lovely sunny day in Savannah, you can still have pockets of flooding. And this is not the same flooding everywhere. It depends on the impact of steady and sustained winds on a complex coastal environment with a lot of different geometries and tributaries involved. And so this is exactly the kind of application that our network is aimed at. And so when we think about getting ahead of flooding with a network of sensors like we are trying to install, we're thinking about aiding before a flood, thinking about can you understand and forecast a flooding event with a model and help the community understand what areas might flood during what kinds of events, whether it's a small or big event. That's a very important application. Then during the event, can we provide some real-time information to residents and especially emergency managers and responders to understand how to deploy resources to those aspects that are those pockets that are most vulnerable, et cetera. And after, of course, you want to be able to know which pieces of your critical infrastructure, especially bridges, may have been compromised by saltwater. And so as our primary application is on bridges that you'll see, this is one thing that we're very excited to try to enhance in the very, very near term. So open to our lovely project that launched back in August under the umbrella of the Georgia Smart Community Program. These are the consortium of public and private funders that allowed these 4 projects to go forward. We are one of those, and we are lucky to have the director of the Georgia Smart Program in the room today, Greg McCormick, and I'll invite you to say a couple words about the program. Hold on, why don't you take this up? Let's make it official here.
So good morning, everybody. Thank you, Kim. Thanks, Russ. Thanks, Randall, everyone. This project is a phenomenal project, and we're so happy that the Georgia Smart Communities Challenge can support it. The Georgia Smart Communities Challenge was a grant challenge initiated by Georgia Tech and the Smart Cities and Inclusive Innovation Initiative last year. So this is one of the projects in the inaugural year. We're happy to say that we're now have launched the opportunity for the 2019 group and are accepting applications to that as well. But this is an opportunity to receive grant funding for projects in smart cities and smart community and planning with a partnership between Georgia Tech and communities in Georgia. And so we know that Georgia Tech is kind of known in Atlanta, but we know that we have a responsibility throughout the state of Georgia as well. And so this is one of the outreach programs that we're trying to project on the whole state of Georgia and reaching all the way out to Savannah. We're very proud of that project. So Kim, Russ, Randall, congratulations again. I'm so happy to see the progress that you guys have made throughout the year so far. And we're very happy that we were able to support you in this endeavor.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. So we'll look forward to sharing the project workshop with you later, and definitely grateful for that funding that allowed this to take flight, because it's been absolutely transformative for those of us who have been involved, I know. And it will continue to bear fruit, I think. And so just in terms of timeline, we started in August officially, and so we're about 7 months into the project with about 5 months remaining until our 1-year project comes to an end. And so we're in the phase of kind of envisioning that phase 2, if you will, for the project, with any number of again, grants pending in that area. So just to hit on the main project goals, and you'll see that the project goals now extend well beyond emergency planning and response, although that is our primary application, and we are really eager to get some actual products and deliverables to that goal by August. But we go way beyond that in thinking about understanding short and long-term risk for this community. And that's really in partnership with Randall as well as Nick Deffley. We're thinking about resilience planning. So how can we facilitate some of that with regard to coastal flooding risk going forward? And that's something that we have a very large pending NSF grant that's targeted squarely on that application, by the way. So fingers crossed, we get to really bring that piece to life. But we are laying the foundation for that even so with our work today. And then we have the educational component, which has been so exciting to see the appetite from these schools. We're very eager to get these data streams into the hands of students to help them understand what's going on in their own communities on this issue, while training them in these advanced computational techniques and engineering techniques that, of course, are going to be critical for their own educational development and curricula enhancement. So big thanks to Jema and Tim on that note. And then last but not least, certainly for this project, is thinking about the communication and awareness building that we're aimed at. And so we have a number of public events. Of course, we have a public event going on right now. We'll have a big one May 16th. I'll talk about that. And then we're thinking about some installations, in particular at the Tybee Island Marine Science Center and their upcoming brand new facility on Tybee Island, which will may even contain a dedicated installation for the sea level sensor project. We also have a website, sealevelsensors.org, that really digs into some of this as well. And so this is the current status of the sensor network. We have 10 sensors deployed. They're talking to 8 data gateways, and we're trying to get 50 sensors in the water, above the water by August. And Russ, do you just want to speak a bit to the status of the sensor deployment?
Yeah, so quickly we have...
Let me just, you can just hold this out in front of you, I think it's easy.
So we had 12 that were built before the current batch that's coming, and 10 of those are deployed. We got 2 more out in the field yesterday, and the big update since our last meeting is a couple of nice new gateway deployments at Garden City Hall, as well as the condominiums at Bull River. Thank you to the Bull River Homeowners Association for joining the project. And also some real nice developments in terms of the software and the robustness for managing the gateways in the last couple of months. And then one new component we're bringing to the project in the last couple of weeks. This is a commercially available temperature and humidity sensor that uses the this is a commercially available temperature and humidity sensor. It is outdoors. It's battery operated from AA batteries, designed to last 2 years. Uses the same technology that we're deploying, which means these now work on all of the same places in all of the area that we've been deploying gateways. And this unit is commercially available for $75 a piece. So significant game change, and this is what we've been preparing for, is this kind of impact of the project. So very excited to have this kind of opportunity to expand the project going forward.
Will that go in the box or outside the gray box?
This goes anywhere. So we mounted one on your fence out here. Put this on your front porch. Literally anywhere within a couple of miles of wherever we have to be. So it's a separate unit. Everything we've done. And I think have a few of these in our API now, so we can play with it.
So that's actually, I think, an amazing amazing advancement, because before we were trying to co-locate all this hardware with a specially fabricated sensor package, right? And so part of the hitch and the get along has been getting those pushed out, and this is actually an off-the-shelf component. So thinking about the potential for citizen science projects really expands our potential in that area. And I also want to note that one of the main things going on at Georgia Tech right now is building capacity around a mega project called Hot Cities 2050, which we are not a lead on, but we are a component of principal investigators on, Russ and I, and that is focused on temperature. And so temperature sensors and how to identify urban heat islands and how to protect communities from heat-related stress and mitigate those stresses in communities actively. So that's, I think, an incredible tie to help us become a more meaningful partner in that project going forward. So just to kind of lay the land of what some entities in Georgia are moving forward on in this area of temperature, which is, of course, a growing threat as well. We think of sea level rise for our project, but temperature is a growing threat related to climate change as well, with acute stresses to vulnerable populations. Okay, so just to note that we're currently looking at sea level or water level precisely and air temperature, and then we're moving underwater, hopefully in the near future, with some design applications for ocean temperature, ocean salinity, maybe even nutrient loading, pH, oxygen, variables that the community would hopefully tell us that they want to see first, and that's technologically available in sensor packages or marine applications. We're also hearing a lot about air quality from the surrounding Savannah community, especially for vulnerable populations in Savannah. So we're very eager to leverage the expertise that we have on the project team in the form of Sally Ng, who is one of the nation's preeminent atmospheric chemists, to help us take some first steps to deploy some air quality sensors on the backbone of the array that we have. And then, of course, with the same sensor that we have now deployed on bridges looking at seawater, we can deploy it in places where we want to monitor inland flooding. We heard this from one of the community meetings, some of these channels that are draining and running through the Savannah area can help us understand a little bit more about the vulnerability there. These all talk to what's called a gateway device, which is the priciest component on our list of kit that we put out there. So we're very happy to have that 8 or 9 gateways currently installed, including some of these most recent ones that Russ spoke to. And they talk to sensors of any type across a 1 to 4 mile radius. And that depends on tree cover, mostly tree cover, right, Russ? Pines are an issue, it turns out. So we've had to retweak our designs to get the kind of coverage that we would like, but we're very, very pleased with that. And they can serve any number of hundreds of sensors and any different kind of variables. So this speaks to this Internet of Things application that is at the core of any kind of smart cities application, that you can generate all this kinds of data streams that you can pull together to serve the community in any number of different ways. And so the sensor package that we currently have is Georgia Tech designed from off-the-shelf components, fabricated with a housing. Do we have one here? This is maybe one of the times we don't have an actual sensor. It's in the car. So we could get it at the break, maybe. They're very high precision. They have very long battery life, which has implications for the ability to keep up with servicing these by the city or county folks. And they've been working pretty well. We have these data streams on the website available for folks to view. One of the most exciting components of the project that we have affiliated, that kicked off officially with the initiation of the Sea Level Sensor Project, is the design of a really high resolution ocean model grid for the coast of Chatham County. And so this is led by Manu Di Lorenzo, who is one of the world's experts on high resolution coastal ocean modeling. And he's teaming up with some people in Italy, so this is our international component of the project already, to think about how to make this better, to test it against our sensor data, and to apply it towards the goal of like 3 to 5 day forecasting for the Savannah, Chatham County area. So that's their specific goal for this modeling project. They're already generating preliminary 3-day forecasts with this tool, but they are as now unverified. And the longer our sensor data streams get in terms of time, the more rich that data set is in terms of benchmarking that model and verifying those forecasts and really helping them become more operational right now, obviously in kind of test and development phase. This is what that grid looks like. So you can see it out here at tens of meters, and then it grades down to a maximum resolution of 5 to 10 meters in some of these very, very small tributaries. It's computationally very expensive to run, so we use very large computer clusters at Georgia Tech in order to run this. And so we're looking at tides right now in ocean properties like temperature and salinity that are modeled by this grid. And then we're going to be layering up hydrology in partnership with some of the hydrologists at Georgia Tech in civil engineering. We also need a full land model with all of the topography in the natural world, as well as the built environment. And so this is where we are looking to our core partners on the team, David Frost, who some of you know from his work in GT Savannah, and Iris Twen, both civil engineers focused on integrating human and built environments into these kinds of models for disaster response and mitigation. So this is one of those simulations that is kind of what it looks like, the tides flashing up and down in this model. Not terribly exciting, but you've got to start with the tides because they're the biggest signal that the model sees. And then the one of the verifications that they were able to do is to look at the observed Fort Pulaski tide gauge data and what they're modeling with this model. So as course as they're doing pretty well. Obviously, some of these episodes right here speak to the fact that we may not have the winds perfectly right. We may not have the exact currents perfectly right. So that's important to try to do as well as we can, not just against Fort Pulaski, but against all of our sea level sensor data streams that we're getting and the richness of those and how they will inform the model projections. So I just want to speak briefly to the Jenkins High School collaboration. I will invite Russ to speak on that, and then Jama on the Oglethorpe Middle School. Russ, do you want to tell us what you did yesterday and where they are?
Mike swap.
Yeah.
Yes. The most exciting thing I've done in a very long time, opportunity to visit with the, so we've been working with the school. Basically the current batch of sensors is being assembled. So we have 30 sensors being assembled right now. About a month ago, we kicked off the project with them. I brought a car full of boxes of parts and a hastily written set of instructions that our team had put together and said, here you go. Here's what one looks like. Keep us posted. No, quite seriously, we've been working very closely with them. Tim Cohn, pictured here, makes weekly, or at least every other week, visits to check in with the students. Yesterday, basically, they gave me an update and were able to show me the very detailed and very diligent procedures that they have taken and written and developed from what we gave them. The instructions they created, this is in their engineering shop, they had created a jig, for instance, on the drill press for them to drill the holes in the boxes precisely. They had refined our clumsy technique for putting the metal inserts in the material and developed a whole new approach using a press. And very nice work and very nice progress like that. And they also have one that they completed basically to test out all of their procedures, but hadn't tried it out yet. So I brought a gateway in yesterday, and we put some batteries in, and they stood back and waited for the smoke to come out. But in fact, everyone was thrilled to see that it turned right on, connected right to the gateway, and we started receiving data from it. So really exciting and really fun to work with and see not just how they're able to contribute to this project, but how the project becomes a fantastic learning exercise in terms of how to manage a team and how to work in a team and how to document your work and follow proper safety procedures when working with the equipment and all sorts of things like that. So great lessons being learned and a great opportunity again to engage the community in the project. So real fun.
Okay. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, Rebecca Greenbush, that's a teacher at Oglethorpe Charter Middle School that I'm working with, she's going to implement the sea level sensor curriculum that I'm developing. We're going to have a phone call in about 2 weeks. I'll talk her through the curriculum, hand it off to her, and then we'll see what the 6th graders think of the activities, which include a lot of data analysis and visualization of data from the sensors as well as data from Fort Pulaski, and some inquiry-based activities modeling how the melting of land ice and sea ice affects sea level rise, and then extending it into climate change and how it affects their homes, their schools, their communities, and what they envision going forward, changing their climate story. So we'll see how the curriculum works out. Should take about a week in class. Might end up taking more depending on how things go in the school, but excited to see how it works and excited to hear from her and the students.
So I have a 6th grader, so I'm really looking forward to monitoring this, and just wish that, she could be one of those students in the room. And I know that we would all wish that different schools could have access to this material through time, because it's really relevant for them. It's an issue that is relevant to their own home communities. And right now, the way that climate change is treated in the 6th grade curriculum is just like half a page, and some schools do a better job, and some schools don't. And so thinking about propagating this, if it's successful, to other schools in the area is one of our key project goals. And so stay tuned for that. It's easy and better to work with one school at this development stage, but we're really looking for additional partners. So those of you who are on the live stream who may be teachers or no teachers, do get in touch, as we want to start to think about our next steps in this area. And Lala, do you want to speak briefly to the Georgia Tech students who are also gaining an undergraduate kind of design and development experience through this as well, because we don't want to leave them out.
Hi, everyone. We're also working with a couple of teams of Georgia Tech undergrad students in the computer science department on building tools and services on top of the sea level sensors API, which contains all the data from the sensors that have been deployed so far. So we're building two specific tools. One is a dashboard that visualizes sensor data over time, so that you can see where sensors are plotted on a map and then see the measurements that they've recorded over time. It's easier than consuming an API in some cases. And second is a mobile app that displays water level in augmented reality. So depending on where you are in the county, you can see where water height would be under historical conditions for previous storms, as well as present conditions if water level was a certain height based on your current elevation. So both of those apps, tools will actually be on display coming up in May, which I think Kim will speak to more, but hopefully you guys can all check it out and use it and give us feedback on that.
Yeah, so if you're interested in these different educational curricula, and especially with the web portals and apps that the Georgia Tech student teams are developing, you'll want to come to our May 16th event, because all of those will be on display, and you can kind of dig into that content a little bit more and understand it, play with it. And of course, most importantly for the students who are involved with the Georgia Tech teams, provide feedback. So last but not least is a section of the talk just talking about the community engagement and community awareness building. This is a photo from an event that Russ and I participated in back in January down in Brunswick, which was extremely well attended, and people with tons and tons of questions that we couldn't even get to. Very exciting, and I hope it's the first of many such kind of events along the coast that will involve not just Russ and I, but all of the key players like Jennifer Klein and Jill Gamble, who have been working in this space for a very long time, and there's a lot of capacity building up. And so we also have a huge number of stakeholder meetings that we do every time we're down here, keeping awareness and trying to figure out what we can bring to other people's work in this area, including Skidaway, the Tybee Island Marine Science Center I already mentioned, even SCAD, all of these conversations in various stages of execution, if you will. Just to highlight some upcoming opportunities for those of you who want to hear more, we have a talk scheduled. Randall will be at Georgia Tech for the Ocean Visions 2019 Summit. There will be a live stream of this summit for those of you who can't make the trek up to Georgia Tech. An amazing slate of international experts focused on ocean solutions is coming to Georgia Tech for the first time ever, because it's not that Georgia Tech is known for its ocean sciences, but this is a very exciting opportunity to showcase the depth of some ocean-related expertise, ocean and climate-related expertise across the state to some international stakeholders. So these are the core partners for the Ocean Summit. Very exciting, and I'll also have a speaking opportunity at Monday Monday morning. And I want to note a special side note for this effort is that Manu Di Lorenzo, who's the lead organizer, has put together a consortium of institutions across the country that's focused on an ocean incubator. So thinking about accelerating some of the technologies that are emerging from the research environment into actual commercial entities that can scale much more quickly with private investment. So stay tuned on that. We also have Nick Deffley and I will be traveling to Norfolk. There's Nick, by the way. I introduced you earlier. There's the man himself. Later in April for a CLIVAR workshop, which is the kind of the umbrella climate science organization in the United States, looking at sea level hotspots. And so Nick and I are excited to go show our work and learn from other people's work up and down the eastern seaboard. So these are networks of capacity that's coming together really anew and for the first time ever across the eastern seaboard. And then last but not least, I mentioned this, well, Lalith mentioned it, I mentioned it briefly, May 16th, please save the date. We have a massive project expo at the Jetson Center in downtown Savannah, where we'll be having tables and iPads and laptops and sensors and students. So we'll have a massive project expo that will bring together some of the core community stakeholders, including the leadership that come down from Georgia Tech, as well as the leadership from the city and county level, to speak to what this project has meant to them, to think about what our next steps are, to aggregate more momentum and partnerships through conversations that day, and to really raise awareness around the public about what is going on with this project and what it hopes to do for the community. So please come and join us during that exciting day. And with that, I'm a little late, but not too bad. Oh, Buddy Carter, last but not least, Buddy Carter. So this is a picture of me and Buddy Carter in February after I testified to Congress on climate change. I went over to his office and talked about this project. And I told him that we are aiming to provide solutions and capacity around this issue of coastal flooding. And he was very excited to hear. And he followed up with SEMA a couple days later. And now we have a meeting scheduled with his office on April 15th to discuss what this project means for the coastal communities and his constituents. So very interesting progress. He now sits on the Climate Select Committee for the House, which is charged with thinking about bipartisan solutions to climate change. And so this is squarely now in his wheelhouse, and he is very, very interested, and we're very grateful for his engagement on this. So now I will stop and we'll turn it over for questions and discussion from the group. Thank you so much.